Welcome back, sports fans. Okay, let's get into this one right here. Woo, long time coming. Long time coming. Dwight Howard is not a top 75 player because of one reason. One reason Dwight is not a top 75 player. This is insane. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on why Dwight Howard is not a top 75 player. Do you see this resume right here? Look at this resume. We're going to go over this resume, and it's insane. This guy is not a top 75 player, right? So let's look at this. NBA champion, 8-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA first team, 1-time second team, defensive player of the year, 3 times. 3 times defensive player of the year. 3 times in a row. Could you imagine? This guy was defensive player of the year 3 times in a row. NBA first team defense 4 times. Second team defense 1 time. Was on the rookie first team. 5-time rebound leader. Wow. 2-time blocks leader. Slam dunk contest winner, right? Won the dunk contest. Oh man, what do that man? That don't mean nothing, man. What that mean? Well, I guess it doesn't mean nothing, right? If LeBron doesn't do it, it doesn't mean nothing anymore, right? We got to go by what LeBron does, right? And gold medal 2 times, right? And let me look at something. Well, we come back to it. So let me say this. I know people in the top 75 in the Hall of Fame who doesn't have one NBA championship. We know when that came in the 2020 bubble. There's no way the Lakers beat Denver without the Twin Towers of Dwight Howard and AD against Joker. They don't win that. They don't win that matchup against Denver. So if you try to put an asterisk against his championship in 2020 because he was with AD and LeBron and them, hey, they brought the man over there. That became a super team, okay? And to me, they consider super team different things, but to me, it gets even bigger. The stakes are even bigger as far as being a super team when you have number one options of another team, number one franchise players of other teams. I don't care if the man wasn't in his prime. This guy came in way after LeBron, right? Let me see what year this guy came in. No, not way after. He came in 2004, so a year after LeBron. So he came out of high school. I mean, him and LeBron is the same age, right? Both of them LeBron is older. LeBron is older than Howard. So let's keep going. 8-time All-Star. 8-time All-Star. He was even making the All-Star team when he went to go play with the Lakers in 2012, right? He was still making the All-Star team, I think, 2 years in LA. So it's not like he left Orlando in 2011-12 and became a scrub. He was still making the All-Star team. I know people on the top 75 in Hall of Fame who don't even have 8 All-Star appearances. Scottie Pippen doesn't. 5-time All-NBA first team and 1 time the second team. Now, look, let's keep going. Defensive player of the year 3 times in a row. What? Let me give it to you. 3 times in a row, this man won defensive player of the year. First team defense, 4 times. Second team, right? 1 time. We know rookie first team. He led, let me see, and was a rebound champ 5 times, 2 times in a row. He led the league in blocks 2 times. And let me see something real quick. So he led the league in rebounds while he was leading the league in blocks. Slam dunk contest. Oh, man, that don't mean nothing. Why? Because LeBron won't participate. He won this dunk contest. Let me see. In 2008. This was in LeBron's face, right? LeBron was in his prime. 2008. Where was LeBron in the dunk contest? You're trying to tell me he couldn't have went out there and took on Dwight Howard, a center? You trying to tell me he couldn't out dunk Dwight Howard? And some people say this is the why. This is the reason why he can't out dunk Dwight Howard, because LeBron is kind of corny. He's not going to come up with anything that's going to win him this dunk contest as far as creativity. He's not going to be able to do it. And of course, 2-time gold medalist. I think he's got 1 bronze. But let me tell you this, before we get into why he's not on the top 75, which is an embarrassment to the NBA. When I look at statistical accolades, I consider that hustle, you being the best, right? At rebounding, passing, blocks, which is defense, rebounding, scoring, steals, these type of things. To get these statistical accolades, guess what? You really got to work on your game, because you're up against not only your teammates to be the best that year, but you're up against all these different players in these different teams. That's what dudes strive for, to be the best at scoring, passing, rebounding, blocks, steals, all this type of stuff. To me, a dude sitting around doing 27, 7, and 7, that don't mean nothing to me, bro. That's like you living in the middle of the game. I mean, it's nice, but it's not top tier to me. You're not the best in passing. You're not the best in rebounding. You're not the best in defense. You're not the best in scoring. Man, when you see dudes getting 2 statistical titles in 1 season, you know how much of a motor you got to have and be in shape and be good at your craft. And this is what this guy was doing. This is the stuff that Michael Jordan did. 2 statistical titles in a year. A Wilt Chamberlain, a Bill Russell, a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar 1 year. That's why people, they might get mad when I tell them, but Joker don't mean nothing to me, bro. He's been playing all these years and he don't have 1 statistical title. Not 1. He's a great player, but who's on top of him? Where's the Hakeem on top of him? Where's the Shaq on top of him? Where's the David Robinsons? Even the Dwight Howards, people getting offended because Dwight Howard said he would throw his stuff into the 8th row. And he's got all this room to talk, because when you look at his statistical accolades, this is what you're looking at. We giving dudes MVPs for not leading the league in nothing. What kind of trash is that? You don't have to be the best at no statistical accolade? Man, get out of here. Look, I think Larry Bird and Tim Duncan, I think they were great players, but this is why they're not in my top 5. Sometimes when you don't have any statistical accolades, it might tell you or tell us that you had a lot of help, right? you might have had a lot of help. So you didn't have to be the best at rebounding or the best at scoring or the best at passing or the best at blocks. Jordan didn't have that kind of help, especially early in his career. Hakeem didn't have that kind of help. Um, let's see. Hakeem didn't. Kareem didn't a lot in the 70s when he was racking up these statistical titles. I would say Wilt didn't have a lot of help. I'm not trying to say he didn't have help, but when you have a lot of help, you could just stay in the middle somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have to really go all out like that because you got so much help. And when you look at Larry Bird, he doesn't have one statistical title, and that just proves how much help he had. Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, all these guys. I'm not trying to say he wasn't a great player, but to me, the statistical titles to me prove, it proves more of a hustle. You're using more energy. I don't know how to explain it to you guys, but this is more respectable to me. Am I saying Dwight Howard is better than Larry Bird? No. But you can't fault the man because he was in an era where they only care more about wingmen and perimeter players, right? In the 2000s, in the 2010s. Man, you put this guy's resume up in the 90s, what are we talking about? This guy would be celebrated, right? Imagine that. This guy would be celebrated. But because he played in this type of era that he played in, I mean, we just act like this guy didn't do anything. Put this guy, if we take away the MVPs, right? The MVPs and the finals MVPs and put him against Joker, what would you say? What would you say? I mean, the fact that, let's check this out. If you put this guy in this era right here, he won't make it. Because they don't play any defense. If you're a player that plays defense, you're up against it. You got to be all about offense first. That's what you got to be about in this era. Not that nobody plays no defense. I'm just saying it's all about offense first. I don't know. Maybe if he just came into this league, I don't know. Maybe he could learn to adapt more. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what would happen if you put Dwight Howard in his era, in his prime. You got Rudy Gobert. He's not offensively skilled. So I'm not too sure. This game today is weird, but what I will say, if you put Joker back in the early 2000s until 2012, I don't think Joker would make it. I just don't. I'm not saying they had the greatest centers and power forwards back then, but it was way more physical. Was it physical like the 80s and 90s? No. But dudes actually played defense. I don't think Joker would make it. Or he won't be the same person, the same player. So let's get into this right here. Oh, let me say this first. And I know people is going to try to, turn the video off right now before I get to my main point. But look, this guy was pretty much doing what Bill Russell was doing, right? He was the Bill Russell of his time. He wasn't really a two-way player, but he was more of a defensive player. I won't say, I don't think he was on like the level of Hakeem, but if we look at it, right? 3 defensive player of the year. He had 2 block titles, 5 rebound titles. I mean, the guy was playing like Bill Russell. Oh, man, you can't say that, man. The guy is getting penalized for playing like Bill Russell. Okay, of course he doesn't have 22 rebounds a game because, there's more people to get rebounds in this era. or his era that he was in. So you're not going to get 22 rebounds. So you got to respect the man for playing defense and playing his position. And he averaged 19 points per game with the Orlando Magic on top of all this. Right? He would not saying he's on Bill Russell's level. That's his own era. That's why I say you can't compare eras. These guys did what they did in their era. But in his era, he was playing on a Bill Russell level. He wasn't scoring a lot of points, but he wasn't scoring just a little bit of points. And he was a great rebounder and a great defender. And if you look at his steals, I mean, he was getting steals too. So let's get into this right here. I know a lot of people's going to be offended because I said that, but I'm just, a comparison. Look, when we look at what Bill Russell and Wilt did back then, it was a faster paced era. Nobody's ever going to duplicate those kind of numbers that they were getting because it was a faster paced era. Okay, when you look at it, your centers, they were getting all the rebounds. Your forwards and your power forward and your small forward wasn't getting those type of rebounds that the center was. He was getting all the rebounds. That's why when you see 22 rebounds a game, you really didn't see that same thing going into the 70s. Or the 80s. Dudes weren't getting because more of the team was getting the rebounds. You even had guards getting rebounds. So let's move on. We're going to talk about the main reason why Dwight Howard is not on the top 75. Oh, before we get into that, a lot of people be like, well, there's other people without any statistical titles. I know Tim Duncan doesn't have one statistical title. He never led the league in blocks, rebounds, scoring. Nothing. So, again, I'm not trying to say he's not a great player, but what it tells me is he had a lot of help. He did have a lot of help. Dwight Howard never had the kind of help that Tim Duncan had. Right? Never. So let's talk about this one more time. We'll tell you why why he's not in the top 75. It's because of LeBron James. LeBron James. Okay. If you put this guy in the top 75, he will be remembered not only for this, because he should be remembered for his resume. It's ridiculous. But he'll be remembered for beating LeBron in 2009 when LeBron was the MVP, had the best record in the NBA. And LeBron couldn't even go to 6 games. Wow. So if you talk about the big three that chased LeBron away, you got to think about Dwight Howard, who chased LeBron away too. Because it isn't the lie that LeBron had to go build a super team because the big three. Bro, you had the number 1 seed over the big three 2 years in a row and won the MVP 2 years in a row over the big three. And the big three was the number 4 seed when they beat you in 2010. So how was you building a super team to go against them? Second, they don't want Dwight Howard, right, in the top 75 because he helped LeBron James win a bubble championship. Help LeBron win a bubble championship. They don't want this guy in there. Because if they put him in there, they'll say, oh yeah, Dwight Howard, he won 1 championship with LeBron. They don't want to give this guy no credit. But you cannot deny this guy's resume. It's so, like I said, we can go to the top 75. We can go to Hall of Fame players, and some of them don't have about the cuss. Some of them don't have a championship. Some of them never made the All-Star team 8 times. Some of them never made first defensive 5 times. A lot of them, I would say the majority of them, never even had Defensive Player of the Year, let alone 3 years in a row. A lot of them never been on the first team defense 4 times, and the All-NBA team, first team 5 times. A lot of them never been on rookie first team. A lot of them never been a rebound champ 5 times. A lot of them never been blocks leader 2 times. And like I said, this guy led the league in rebounds and blocks, if I'm not mistaken, 2 seasons. Both of them together. Michael Jordan led the league in scoring and steals 3 times. I'm talking about together. So, I mean, he came close to doing what Michael Jordan did. To having leading the league in 2 statistical categories 3 times. He came close to that. I think Wilt did it. I don't know how many times. And if we count blocks, he actually led the league in 3 statistical categories in 1 year. Like, who knows? Who knows? That's why people, when I keep coming out and I talk about Wilt number 2, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? A player on the floor. If you want to talk about championships, that's fine. Who else stopped the 60s Celtics? I mean, that's ridiculous. Who else stopped them? At least Wilt won a championship in the 60s, right? During that dynasty. Nobody else did. So why is everybody so mad? We're talking about the player. If we take the championship away from Dwight Howard, let's look at his resume as a player. You guys are confused about liking somebody, finals MVPs. Look at their resume as a player. Their statistical titles. What was they good at? Did they make defensive teams? Did they make all NBA team? Everybody's not going to win an MVP. Stockton doesn't have an MVP. Was he a great player? Yes, he was a great player. I mean, Patrick Ewing doesn't have an MVP. You're trying to say he wasn't a great player? Gary Payton doesn't have an MVP. I mean, there's a lot of players. Clyde Drexler doesn't have an MVP. Isaiah Thomas doesn't have an MVP. Well, I mean, what are we talking about? There were just players that was greater than them. But that doesn't mean they wasn't great. You guys are ridiculous. And we'll have 4 MVPs. So I'm not taking him out of number 2. Because like I said, his statistical titles makes Bill Russell look silly. It makes it, Bill Russell, he was great. Good shot blocker, good rebounder. But Wilt was a 2-way player. What are we talking about? I mean, y'all got to stop, man. So tell me what you think.